substance or behaviour. My substance of addiction, alcohol, my behaviour, quite as addictive, work, relationships, collecting, materialism, trying to look right, trying to appear right, putting on a brave face, not quite sure what was going on inside me, because I'd lived with it for so long, and that was a fear of life in particular, and a fear of not being good enough. And I don't know where it came from, or do I? Well, maybe it's because I never learned how to deal with life on a daily basis, and I was always frightened of being found out, and shame and guilt around that. And that goes back to my very, very early childhood. It has nothing to do with family, has to do with instances outside that, we get to where we are, and then we decide and understand what we can do about our choices. And through my adolescence and into my career, working, and my relationships of living, I guess fear was always there, fear of not being good enough. And what did I do? I poured a drink on top. It suppressed my feelings of fear and brought out another person, the person who would want to be convivial, part of, included, able to access my feelings of love for other people, and not be fearful that people wouldn't love me back. And even when people loved me, I didn't know how to deal with it. So how do I work it all out on a daily basis now? Well, I've stopped drinking, one day at a time, and it's good to be in a one-day program which allows me the benefit to find out how I'm feeling and then wonder what to do next. And the gift is, if I've got a blank page on a daily basis of how life can turn out, I have a better understanding that from one end of the day to the other, I get to know who I am a little bit more, and I get to know more about people around me a little bit more. And I make my choices to be with those who I can identify with and those who don't have any part to play in my life. And I say that gently and carefully, because sometimes we don't like people. We don't like their behaviour, even though we might quite like the person as they stand, but we can't stand their behaviour. So what have I learned along the way? Well, 35 years of drinking made me functional in some ways, accumulating and being possessive and obsessed to be right, to be perfect, and never so. So I was beating myself up against, I guess, a standard which I set for myself, and I didn't even know where that standard would take me. But it did take me into a couple of careers, and I did well. And then I fell to pieces. And at the time of falling to pieces and the nervous breakdown, I wasn't drinking. I was just so scared of what was happening to me. I couldn't make sense of anything. But as time went by, drink provided oblivion from the depression I was in, and the anxiety state, and the panic attacks, and you name it. And I got to a place of 24-hour drinking. And then, what happened? I had a rock bottom, and I made a joke about rock bottom yesterday, and a quote from Jennifer Lopez, simply thinking it might be quite funny. Didn't quite turn out that way, but the gift is, it's past, and I can make better jokes maybe, and make better observations and quotes about life. Anyway, the gift is, being in the day and being sober means that I am able to move on and look forward and be a part of life. So at that rock bottom, what happened? A moment of clarity. That was, I could not do this on my own. Family, friends, community kept me alive long enough, and professionals, to get that moment of clarity that I needed help. And in the end, what helped me? Well, a fellowship, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I share about it here. And I also share a little bit about me and my life and the literature of AA in order to share experience, strength and hope, which is really the intent of fellowship. So, what is AA? I will share the statement of intent, or the AA preamble. It reminds me what's important to me. Lean on fellowship and life will work with family, community and society. So sobriety comes first. Noise is off. It's probably the wine merchants across the road getting ready to throw out all the empty bottles. Anyway, the statement of intent. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And anyone who goes to AA is a unique, authentic person. Not special and different, just unique, authentic, like everybody else. And the fellowship is full of wisdom, of experiences learned by so many people staying sober. And whether we're new, brand new, whether no time of sobriety or decades, and I'm nowhere near that. Sobriety is what we're there for. Unique, authentic people finding their unique, authentic path in life. And AA draws from every source it can possibly imagine in its literature and in its fellows. We all work to that common aim, to be sober and see how life can turn out. And yesterday I went to one of my home groups, and somebody doing the chair, only a few months in, although they have had knowledge of AA for some time, and this is often the way, from my first meeting to my second, there was a good 5 years, and all that denial in between was drinking time, convincing myself I was not an addict or an alcoholic, and always using self-will, which failed, as it always does if we're an addict, because it is an illness that we cannot overcome on our own. So fellowship and hearing somebody speak for the first time, doing a chair, which is where we sit at the front and share a message of experience, strength and hope, which may be just a few minutes long or half an hour, depending on what happens in our minds and how we share. But mine went on for a long time, a bit like my videos. And this person, how do people get it so young, is my question. And I'm always so pleased when I see somebody who is becoming sober at a very young age. And their share was beautiful because it explained why, how, and what to do next, and just all the pitfalls along the way. But the gift is, when somebody actually sits at the front, is able to share a message of experience, strength and hope, and we have brand new people in tonight, or rather last night, about learning about recovery. So from 1 day sober to 31 years sober last night, all to the good. And people are in the same place, on the level playing field. No one's bigger, no one's smaller. We are respectful of each other, equal-sized people. So all good. And in today's reading and daily reflections, it says we pause, it says, serving my brother. The member talks to the newcomer, not in the spirit of power, but in a spirit of humility and weakness. As the days pass in AA, I ask God or my good conscience to guide my thoughts and the words that I speak. In this labour of continuous participation in the fellowship, I have numerous opportunities to speak. So I frequently ask God or my good conscience to help watch over my thoughts and my words, that they may be the true and proper reflections of our programme, to focus my aspirations once again to seek His guidance to help me be truly kind and loving, helpful and healing, yet always filled with humility and free from any trace of arrogance. And the gift in that, I haven't got time to do the whole of the next paragraph, the gift in that is it's an equal-sized fellowship of equal-sized people with sobriety as their common purpose. So when I share the Serenity Prayer at the end of these videos, it is to God or good conscience around acceptance of the reality of now. And it goes, God, or to good conscience, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference for me is just for today. My videos all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour, and my substance was alcohol, my behaviour trying to be perfect, all those 35 years of drinking. Maybe a perfect drinker, that is to be completely saturated and find oblivion
for as many times as I needed it, and in the end it became every day as life got smaller and smaller in my addiction. And that's the irony, really. We drank because we liked the taste of it, or we drank because of the effect. Many people say they didn't like the taste of alcohol when they first tried it, but they did like the effect it had on their feelings, and that was to take the edge off. And, you know, over the years I've realised that I used alcohol to take the edge off a lot of things, the good parts of life and the sad parts of life, and never really getting any balance in there. And the reason why I didn't get balance in there is because I really didn't understand life too well. And when you're in a fog, it's easier to stay in the fog than it is to get out of it, because it's comforting. You know the dimensions of where you are. The world is closed in and it's very small. And the problem with any sort of addiction is it often gets us into an isolated place, and then we find that the isolated place is more safe than the big world out there, which might judge us for something that is going on which is not good. And I've never known anybody say addiction is good, even addiction to, I guess, behaviour to do with health, because we can always overdo it one way or another. And I've been very distraught over the last week or two, and I knew my relationship with a very good woman was coming to an end. I knew it was, and I knew her unhappiness, and my own because of it too. And I keep on asking myself each morning, how am I feeling, why, and what can I do? Well, how do I feel today? I still feel there's a big gap in me, and that's good. It meant that every moment of what I was doing over the last year or so, and also being involved with somebody I really do deeply care for still, was worth every moment, because to have those moments of feeling and love and understanding, passion, compassion, all the good things, as well as the, I suppose, almost opposite. I never got to a place of hate, or I don't know, dislocation maybe, or maybe that's where I am now, dislocated. But it's good to know that I have those depths in me, and that I'm just a normal human being in that respect. So all to the good in that area of my life. The big gap, rightfully there, and not to be filled with triviality, and it's so easy to do that, or to try and fill it with another relationship, because all I'll be trying to do is replace and replicate what I had before. And because it was unique and authentic, and my first relationship in recovery, I don't really want to lose its potency, that it meant something, that it is to be cherished. And as you know, on the end of these videos it always says cherish always, and that was something my father said, always cherish people and try not to treat them with superficiality or indifference. And you know, he was right, and he said that about 16 years ago in his deathbed. And those words have stuck with me: cherish superficiality and indifference. And I know I wasn't treated with indifference or superficiality, I was cherished. That doesn't mean it can keep on going. We still have to have enough common ground, and maybe we were just too far apart in those respects. Anyway, that's all part of what is going on. And what keeps me sane and healthy, if I'm not insane? Well, the Fellowship of AA helps me greatly, and the AA stands for Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is really what these videos are about, living life in sobriety. And AA is a big part of that for me. So here's the preamble from a meeting, what we hear at the beginning of meetings, and it says, what is AA? Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And when we talk about sobriety in the fellowship, or when I talk about it, I speak for me here, not for AA, by the way. We're not at odds or against each other, because I'm part of the fellowship, and what I've learned is that we go in as unique, authentic individuals, and we stay that way. We have one similarity, and that is to stay sober one day at a time. And sobriety is about emotional, physical and spiritual, and for me the spiritual connection to living is of prime importance. And for somebody who for many, many years was not ever sure what God could be, or God might be, or what God is, I don't know whether I was an atheist, agnostic or a believer. It kept on changing as life events threw up new challenges or disasters. And for me, the spiritual connection today is seeing the world as it is, reality as it is just now, with as few filters or denials as possible. And I've actually started reading this thing again, the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. Quite a thick tome. And as I said a couple of days ago, the reason why it's called the big book, this is fairly thin compared to what it was before, because in the 1930s, I think when it was first published, it was published on very thick paper because it was cheaper. So it was really thick and big. So that's the reason why it's called the big book. And I've, as I say, just started reading some bits again. And it's very important for me to just remind myself why AA does work for me and continues to work for me. And if I can find a page which is really relevant at the moment. I talked a lot about anonymity yesterday, anonymity being sanctuary and spiritual being truth. And, you know, we all need to come to our own understandings about anonymity. And for me it is sanctuary to find my spiritual truth, the truth of now. And in this, on page 10 of the AA book, it says, I'd always believed in a power greater than myself. I'd often pondered these things. I was not an atheist. Few people really are, for that means blind faith in the strange proposition that the universe originated in a cipher and aimlessly rushes nowhere. My intellectual heroes, the chemists, the astronomers, even the evolutionists, suggest that vast laws and forces at work. Despite contrary indications, I had little doubt that a mighty purpose and rhythm underlay all. I think Einstein said that too. How could there be so much of precise immutable law and no intelligence? I simply had to believe in the spirit of the universe, who knew neither time nor limitation, but that was as far as I'd gone. And, you know, I think that's where I've been for a long time too. And another part of this particular part of Bill's story, which is really at the beginning, it says here, my friend suggested what then seemed a novel idea. He said, why don't you choose your own conception of God? That statement hit me hard. It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required of me to make my beginning. I saw that growth could start from that point. Upon a foundation of complete willingness, I might build what I saw in my friend. Would I have it? Of course I would. And, you know, maybe that's where I'm at again, all over again, understanding that there is whatever your concept of God is yours, and so is mine, as we come to understand. So I like Gandhi, and God is truth and God is love. So I'm in a strange frame of mind this morning. You know, part of me is up and down, and that's good because it means I'm actually connected to what's going on now. I'm maybe not quite stuck in the past. Anyway, coming on to the daily readings, and I don't have much time actually. Just see if I can find it. Page for January the 21st. More fingers and thumbs. Here we are, nearly. In the Just for Today book. I don't think I'm going to have time. No, I'm not. That's too long. I'm going to rejig this video. Let's see how we go. No, I won't. I'll leave it as it is and do another one. So, how am I this morning? How am I feeling up and down? I've got a big gap inside me, which is good. It means that all that has happened in the last year or so has been absolutely worthwhile. It's taught me a lot about me and my humanity and my ability to love, and being careful and sharing and understanding that people cannot always be together. And even though I would wish it so, it can't happen, or it cannot happen right now, but you should never say never. So, my time is up, and apologies for the all over the place. I'll do another video, because I lost my place. And that's good. It means that you probably just see me as I am, which is the right way. So, today, I'm still dropping things. I'm dropping the daily reflections. I stuck it out on the right page for the 21st, yeah. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour, and some days I seem a bit disorganised, and maybe there is a certain mild dementia going on inside my head. And part of it is to do with going to a good meeting of AA last night, where people share the truth of how they are today, and how life has been changed or transformed by just being sober one day at a time. So what helps me keep sober? Simply the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, partly my family, community, society, civilization, good conscience, God, and you name it, anything that rattles along in a sort of sober offering. So here are my videos all about recovery, and I've been looking at the big book. That's the big book of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, the big blue book. It's not so big as it used to be, because they used to put it on rag paper, which was cheaper, and that's why it got the title Big Blue Book or Big Book. It was not because it's a big book about God, although God is mentioned quite substantially in it. And it caught my eye this morning because I was doing some stuff on anonymity in sanctuary, which is what I think and feel is absolutely right in AA. And the spiritual foundation of my life is about truth and believing in what I know to work in terms of recovery and making life okay, or living life okay, just living and experiencing what is going on. And the reason why I do dip into this one is because it is really full of stories about how people got sober. And there's the first story is called Bill's story, and that's Bill Wilson, co-founder of AA. He had some difficult times with booze, like me. I couldn't stop. And in the powerless mode, if you like, step one of the program, which says we are powerless over alcohol and life isn't manageable, especially unmanageable if we're drinking, we have no control. We've lost control completely. But also powerlessness over alcohol, people, places and things, or sort of levels everything out to the same size on the playing field, including me. Because if I try and judge the rest of the world in what it's doing, I'm not actually taking care of business with myself, and I'm probably trying to blame or suggest that either things are bigger or smaller than I am. But if I just take it as a sort of level playing field, very much the American way, and I guess that for the founders being American, it helped quite a lot in that respect. But you know, things jump out at you after a few years when you've been in recovery, and things are to do with a higher power. And a power greater than me is the one, you bet, all around me, all the time. It's called nature and providence, the universe. And bigger things which happen to me, which are to do with truth. As Gandhi said, God is truth. So, you know, I'm getting to understand how my higher power helps me. And that's connected to my good conscience, the good conscience we all have. And the collective good conscience is certainly my higher power. And if that's plugged into God in some way or other, all to the good. So I'm not in denial of anything, really. I just don't know everything. So it's not that ignorance is bliss, but it gives us lots to learn. And that's called life experience. So when it says in here, I had always believed in a power greater than myself. I'd often pondered these things. I was not an atheist. Few people really are, for that means blind faith in the strange proposition that this universe originated in a cipher and aimlessly rushes nowhere. My intellectual heroes, the chemists, the astronomers, even the evolutionists, suggest vast laws and forces at work. Despite contrary indications, I had little doubt that a mighty purpose and rhythm underlay all. And we only have to see it, looking up at the stars, that there is a mighty rhythm and purpose going on, even if we don't understand it. I'll leave that for now, because it's covering what I did in the last video. And I am disorganised this morning, and I haven't shared the AA preamble, which is said at every meeting, but I'm going to share it again just because I feel it slows me down into this one moment of now. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And sobriety comes in three parts for me: emotional, spiritual and physical. And I'm very glad that I go to AA meetings, otherwise I wouldn't be doing these videos. I'd be, I don't know what I'd be. That doesn't matter. It's where I am today which counts. So I'm feeling okay with a big gap, and that's fine. And then in this book, Daily Reflections, which is part of what keeps me going on a daily basis, and gives me something to think about. The member talks to the newcomer. Yeah, you don't want to stalk newcomers, you'll be in trouble. The member talks to the newcomer, not in a spirit of power, but in a spirit of humility and weakness. And humility and weakness, really, humility is just being same-sized and not trying to push things down other people's throats, nor being codependent on them where they have power over you. And weakness, I would actually use the word vulnerability. As the days pass in AA, I ask God, in my case good conscience, which may be connected to God, to guide my thoughts and the words that I speak. Excuse me. In this labour of continuous participation in the fellowship, I have numerous opportunities to speak, so I frequently ask God, through my good conscience in my case, to help me watch over my thoughts and my words, that they may be the true and proper reflections of our programme, to focus my aspirations once again to seek His guidance, or the guidance of good conscience in my case, and in many people's too, but I can't speak for them, I only speak for me. To help me truly be kind and loving, helping and healing, yet always filled with humility and free from any trace of arrogance. And I suppose arrogance is also vanity. Today I may very well have to deal with the disagreeable attitudes or utterances, the typical stock-in-trade attitude of the still suffering alcoholic. If this should happen, I will take a moment to centre myself in God, or good conscience, so that I will be able to respond from a perspective of composure, strength and sensibility. That's not a tall order, is it? And, in the end it's not a tall order, because what we need to do is find a way to actually express ourselves and share the message. And I'm not sure I'm that well at the moment, actually. I may have to go and check my blood sugars in a few moments. So, coming on to As Bill Sees It, this one. Can we choose? We must never be blinded by the futile philosophy that we are just the hapless victims of our inheritance, our life experience, and of our surroundings, that these are the sole forces that make our decisions for us. This is not the road to freedom. We have to believe that we can really choose. And for me, in that statement, in that paragraph, choice. I'm powerless over people, places, things, alcohol, and life can get very unmanageable, but I can be careful in my choices and negotiate where I am and where my boundaries are. As active alcoholics, we lost our ability to choose whether we would drink. We were the victims of a compulsion which seemed to decree that we must go on with our own destruction. Yet we finally did make choices that brought about our recovery. We came to believe that alone we were powerless over alcohol. This was surely a choice, and a most difficult one. We came to believe that a power could restore us to sanity when we became willing to practice AA's 12 steps, and it's in the practice of the steps that we actually make recovery happen. In short, we choose to become willing, and no better choice did we ever make. And for me, the can we choose bit, life is about choices in the moment, and we are better able to make those choices often if we pause long enough to know what is going on. And it's not just about us. And when we make a choice to accept powerlessness over people, places, things and alcohol, we get our choices back. The choices we have which are right-sized for the environment in which we live. So for me, I always say the Serenity Prayer at least once or twice or a dozen times a day. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Simply, it can be simple choices with enough wisdom chucked in there to make it work.